For thousands of years, human civilization measured power through the size of its armies. Kingdoms rose on the backs of warriors, and empires shattered beneath the weight of enemy steel. History celebrated emperors, warlords, and conquerors, the men who marched across continents and carved their names into the soil with blood. But the world changed. Swords became symbols. Armies became ornaments. And in the quiet corridors of finance, a new kind of power emerged, subtle, invisible, and ultimately far more potent than any weapon forged in fire. This is the story of how banks replaced armies, how the battlefield shifted from open fields to financial markets, and how a silent conquest reshaped the destiny of nations without firing a single shot. In the early centuries, wealth was simple gold, land, livestock. Power came from physical possession. Armies took territory, kings demanded tribute. Yet even then, a new class began to rise: moneylenders, merchants, financiers. They understood something the rulers of the world didn't: control the flow of money, and you control everything. While kings fought costly wars, financiers watched from the sidelines, lending coin to both sides. Victors paid back in pride, losers paid back in desperation. Either way, the lenders won. As cities expanded and trade networks grew, money became more abstract. Instead of gold coins, people used bills, letters of credit, and later, banknotes. Wealth no longer needed muscle, it needed trust. And the people who controlled that trust quietly accumulated influence until their power rivaled that of kings. They learned that when armies conquer, they gain land. When banks conquer, they gain nations. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the true shift began. Nations waged wars not only with soldiers but with debt. Each conflict required unprecedented sums, far more than any treasury could hold. And so governments turned to private banking houses, international financiers, and burgeoning central banks. This was the moment where the pen officially became deadlier than the sword. A war might last 5 years, a loan might last 5 decades. With every signature, countries mortgaged their independence. Banks discovered they could do something astonishing: dictate terms to kings. Loan conditions became tools of influence. Economic policies were shaped by creditors. Trade routes were opened or closed based on financial pressure. National decisions became dependent on interest, rates, and repayment schedules. The battlefield was no longer the plains, it was the parliaments, the ministries, the economic councils, the age of invisible empires. In the 20th century, two world wars reshaped global politics. Nations lay in ruins. Economies shattered. Currencies collapsed. But while physical empires fell, financial institutions grew stronger. Post-war reconstruction required astronomical sums of money. Global banking networks stepped forward, offering loans, grants, and aid packages. But attached to every form of assistance was a thread, even a leash. This was not colonization by force, it was colonization by dependency. Countries accepted financial help, not realizing they were entering a new kind of empire, one without borders, without flags, without armies. A single financial institution could devalue a currency overnight, crash a stock, market prevent imports, paralyze a government, collapse an entire economy. No army in history has held such versatile, global, and invisible power. The earliest financiers used coins. Their descendants used paper. Today's conquerors use numbers: digital, silent, instantaneous.
Debt became the most powerful weapon humanity ever created. It doesn't destroy buildings, it takes ownership of them. It doesn't kill soldiers, it controls governments. It doesn't invade countries, it buys them. To many nations, loans seemed like lifeboats, but in reality, they were anchors. The formula was simple. 1. Offer assistance in times of crisis. 2. Attach conditions: economic reforms, privatization. Policy changes. 3. Extend repayment periods. 4. Increase interest burdens. 5. Maintain long-term financial dependence. As debt increased, sovereignty shrank. Nations discovered that their budgets, laws, and political agendas were shaped not in their own capitals, but in conference rooms thousands of miles away. This was conquest without confrontation. Governments become puppets. Most citizens believe their governments control national policy. But in the modern age, governments themselves often answer to higher powers, not elected authorities, but financial ones. When a country's debt grows large enough, healthcare budgets decrease, education spending is cut, prices rise, taxes spike, public assets are sold, wages stagnate, currency weakens, foreign interests take over local industries. People blame politicians, unaware that their leaders have limited freedom. The real policies are written elsewhere. Banks don't need to control a country directly. They only need to control its money crisis as opportunity every economic crisis. Recession or collapse opens a door for greater financial control. History shows a pattern. 1. A nation faces economic hardship. 2. Panic spreads. 3. Assets lose value. 4. Foreign investors move in. 5. Banks provide lifelines. 6. Governments accept strict financial conditions. 7. National wealth quietly transfers. Outward markets rise and fall, but the institutions pulling the strings remain steady, while citizens lose savings, homes, jobs, and stability. Financial giants buy distressed assets at bargain prices. It is the silent equivalent of invading a weakened city after its walls have crumbled.